Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
The most complete accounting yet of the high life of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas shows much more than previously known. More private jets, more fancy vacations, more sporting events, all gifts from mega-rich businessmen and documented through public and private records, plus interviews by ProPublica.
Justice Thomas has been living a life of extreme luxury for 30 years, underwritten by at least 4 different ultra-wealthy benefactors.
Earlier reports have revealed lavish gifts to Thomas, including a house for his mother and this 9-day vacation in Indonesia from conservative billionaire Harlan Crow.
I've come from regular stock.
Who also underwrote a film about Thomas's humble taste.
I prefer the RV parks.
Now the list of benefactors includes 3 more names according to ProPublica: David Sokol, Wayne Huizinga, and Tony Novelli. The report says the 4 moguls collectively treated Thomas to 38 destination vacations, including a previously unreported voyage on a yacht around the Bahamas, 26 private jet flights, plus an additional 8 by helicopter, a dozen VIP passes to professional and college sporting events, 2 stays at luxury resorts in Florida and Jamaica, and 1 standing invitation to an uber-exclusive golf club. The dollar value likely in the millions, little of which appeared in required financial disclosures, according to ProPublica. Thomas has previously said he didn't feel the need to disclose some gifts, and that worries Jeremy Fogel, an expert on judicial ethics and a former judge.
I simply couldn't have done this, and even if the people involved didn't have interest before the court, it's just the idea that you are receiving gifts of this magnitude.
Associate justices make about $285,000 a year. In 2001, when they made about $100,000 less, Thomas spoke up.
The job is not worth doing for what they pay. It's not worth doing for the grief, but it is worth doing for the principle.
Now he bristles at questions about his principles. He calls Crow merely a friend. Crow says they never talk about Thomas's work, and the new report found none of these wealthy pals seem to have had cases before the court. Still,
Each one of these new benefactors, just like Harlan Crow, came into his life after he was appointed to the Supreme Court. That's why it's so problematic from an ethics standpoint.
Are you ready? Hi everybody, it's Jeff. Nice to see everybody. And here it is Friday, and everybody is looking forward to spending the weekend here in some way, doing something that they would rather be doing than sitting at work, you know. A lot of people feel like, you know, this is, you know, it's got mixed reviews here about summer in Maine. Okay, some people think it was lousy, some people thought it was okay. I don't know. Summer's not over yet, but people are already making their opinions about it. But right now, today, it's really nice out, and very few clouds, and we had a very quick shower there earlier this later this morning, and then that was gone. So I can't say that that the heat and all that has been too bad so far, but we did have a huge thunderstorm here a couple nights back. Woo, big one. And amazingly, we didn't lose the power. Because typically a big thunderstorm like that and the lights would just go out. Goodbye. But nope, not this time. So that probably means that they're doing a better job at keeping the power systems functional even during big storms like that. Because usually when that happens, even in this winter time when we have, you know, like high winds or something, you know, the power flickers and then it goes off, and who knows when it comes back. It's harder to fix these lines in the wintertime than it is in the summer. So, you know, so Ohio really came in good this week, huh? I mean, I mean, everybody was kind of thinking that, you know, because, you know, Ohio is wishy-washy, you know, red and whatever. Nope, they did. They came in, what was it, 40% of the voters, and they all voted for making sure that, you know, the minority doesn't get their rule in that state, because it would put the, you know, the freedom of abortion at risk, because that would have been their next thing after this election, you know, that the Republicans lost. The next thing, if they had won it, would have been to all of a sudden go after abortion, okay? And they said they wanted to get a 60 vote majority in order to reverse that measure, which the Democrats are saying, well, that's practically saying you want everybody, because you can barely get 60 votes for anything in this country, in this political climate, and that's being unreasonable. You're just trying to stack the deck, you know, against us. And so they made it a you know, a ballot initiative, and they sent the voters out to decide, and the voters didn't get bamboozled like they usually do. The Republicans tried their best to do this in an off-year election, thinking that nobody would come out and vote. But the Democrats were unified, and they came out and voted. And, you know, that just illustrates to me that, you know, despite what Republicans are saying about, oh, the Democrats are fragmented and they don't know who they want to vote, support, I don't think that's true. I think the Democrats are eager to get out there and vote. They are unified, and I think they want to do this because they know what Republicans have been up to. They've been paying attention, at least out there in Ohio, and I think in the rest of the country. I think a lot of people are sick and tired of seeing Trump in the news. They're sick and tired of hearing about what else he's fucked up, you know, in this country. They're sick and tired of hearing about the Supreme Court, you know, doing the bidding of the Republican extremists. They're just tired of it all, and they want this to stop and go and reverse this thing, okay? And I think that, you know, the elections that are coming up are they're going to be very, how can I say it, you know, a lot of action will be taken, okay? Republicans will try to stymie it and play it down like it wasn't anything. I mean, that's what they did with Ohio. They said, oh, well, it was a bunch of extremist left-wing people that came out and voted. Really? You know? And you say, well, they would support, like, you know, raising the minimum wage. Oh, my God. Raising the minimum. Okay, you know, so they're out there trying to say the good things that Democrats are trying to do are actually bad things, and that these people that went and voted on Ohio were extremists. Okay? Yeah. And like the Republican Party has been middle of the road all this time, right? Yeah. Jesus Christ. You know, I feel like, you know, the more shit they shovel, the less people are getting sick of smelling it. Okay, you know, I really think that people are starting to develop a brain here in our country to recognize bullshit when they hear it. And the only people that these Republicans seem to be able to convince are your brain-dead idiots that sit out there in the, you know, God knows where, okay, with their trucks and their Trump flags. And those people are the ones that are easily duped, because all they live on is anger. Okay, you get them mad enough, and they will vote against their own self-interest. Okay, they will. That's how stupid they are. They don't even sit down and even think about what the fuck they're voting on and why they have to vote on it. They're just told that they should, and this is how you should vote. And that's what they do. They don't even make up their own minds. They're like robots, sheep as they call them. You know, they are. They're the worst sheep around, because they can be lined up to slaughter. And they won't even realize it till it's too late that they went the wrong way. You know, and, you know, this is what happened in Ohio was a good example of how people are waking up. You know, again, woke. People are waking up to what the Republicans are doing. And, you know, for the right wing to try and lie to their base by saying, you know, the battle goes on and we ain't quitting. Well, of course they're not going to quit. They never quit. I mean, people that are hell-bent on doing the wrong thing are always going to keep at it until they get what they want. Okay? That's what they do. And that's why we can't stop. That's why the Democrats can't stop. And we always have to stay vigilant. Okay? In every fucking election that comes around, you got to vote. You have to. Even the local ones, they're just as important. Because you have your chances to stop problems early when they present themselves. All right? Why wait till it becomes a national problem where it's harder to get rid of these fuckers, you know? So start right at the local level and work on all the elections, okay? I realize sometimes it's a pain in the ass, okay, but nobody can deny you your right to vote, okay? There's just no way they can do that. If they try, you can sue their ass for everything they got, okay? But nobody can keep you from voting. It's your fucking right and your responsibility as a citizen in this country to vote. And I think that the more people take that responsibility serious, like the Republican animals take the gun issue serious, you know, then the Republicans are really going to have a tough time in decades to come in order to hold their own against progressive ideals and stuff like that. That's really what it is. Now, with this other thing here that came out today about Clarence Thomas's further abuses, ethical abuses, which, you know, of course it's only you know, in name only, because they really don't have any ethical laws in the Supreme Court to follow. But, you know, this article here had come out about him, and it's written by Brett Murphy and Alex Mirjeski, entitled Clarence Thomas, His 38 Vacations, the Other Billionaires Who Have Treated the Supreme Court Justice to Luxury Travel. During his 30 years on the Supreme Court, 30 freaking years, jeez, Clarence Thomas has enjoyed steady access to a lifestyle most Americans can only imagine. A cadre of industry titans and ultra-wealthy executives have treated him to far-flung vacations aboard their yachts, ushered him into the premium suites at sporting events, and sent their private jets to fetch him, including on more than one occasion, an entire 737. It's a string of luxury that is both more extensive and from a wider circle than has ever been previously understood. Like clockwork, Thomas's leisure activities have been underwritten by benefactors who share the ideology that drives his jurisprudence. Their gifts include at least 38 destination vacations, including a previously unreported voyage on a yacht around the Bahamas, 26 private jet flights, plus an additional 8 by helicopter, a dozen VIP passes to professional and college sporting events, typically perched in the skybox, 2 stays at luxury resorts in Florida and Jamaica, and 1 standing invitation to an uber-exclusive golf club overlooking the Atlantic coast. This accounting of Thomas's travel, revealed for the first time here from an array of previously unavailable information, is the fullest to date of the generosity that has regularly afforded Thomas a lifestyle far beyond what his income could provide, and it is almost certainly an undercut. While some of the hospitality, such as stays in personal homes, may have not required disclosure, Thomas appears to have violated the law by failing to disclose flights, yacht cruises, and expensive sports tickets, according to ethics experts. Perhaps even more significant, the pattern of exposés, consistent violations of judicial norms experts, including 7 current and former federal judges appointed by both parties, told ProPublica, quote, "In my career, I don't remember ever seeing this degree of largesse given to anybody," unquote, said Jeremy Fogel, a former federal judge who served for years on the Judicial Committee that reviews judges' financial disclosures. Quote, "I think it's unprecedented," unquote. This year, the ProPublica revealed Texas real estate billionaire Harlan Crow's generosity towards Thomas, including vacations, private jet flights, gifts, the purchase of his mother's house in Georgia, and tuition payments. In an April statement, the justice defended his relationship with Crow. "The Crows, quote, are among our dearest friends," unquote, Thomas said, quote, as friends do, we have joined them on a number of family trips," unquote. The New York Times recently surfaced a VIP treatment from wealthy businessmen he met through the Horatio Alger Association, an exclusive nonprofit. Among them were David Sokol, a former top executive at Berkshire Hathaway, and H. Wayne Huizenga, a billionaire who turned Blockbuster and Waste Management into national Goliaths. The Times noted Thomas gives access to the Supreme Court building for Horatio Alger events. ProPublica confirmed that the access has cost $1,500 or more in donations per person. Records and interviews show Thomas had another benefactor, oil baron Paul Tony Novelli, whose gifts to the justice have not previously been reported. ProPublica's totals in this article include trips from Crow. Each of these men, Novelli, Huizenga, Sokol, and Crow, appears to have first met Thomas after he ascended to the Supreme Court, with the exception of Crow. Their names are nowhere in Thomas's financial disclosures, where justices are required by law to publicly report most gifts. The total value of the undisclosed trips they've given Thomas since 1991, the year he was appointed to the Supreme Court, is difficult to measure, but it's likely in the millions. Huizenga sent his personal 737 to pick Thomas up and bring him to South Florida at least twice, according to John Weiner, a former flight attendant and chef on board the plane. If he were picked up in D.C., the 5-hour round trip would have cost at least $130,000 each time Thomas chartered the jet himself, according to estimates from jet charter companies. In February of 2016, Thomas flew on Crow's private jet from Washington to New Haven, Connecticut, before heading back on the jet just 3 hours later. ProPublica previously reported the flight, but newly obtained U.S. Marshals Service records reveal its purpose. Thomas met with several Yale Law School deans for a tour of the room where they planned to display a portrait of the justice. Crow's Foundation also gave the school $105,000 earmarked for the, quote, Justice Thomas Portrait Fund, unquote, tax filing show. Don Fox, the former general counsel of the U.S. Office of Government Ethics and the senior ethics official in the executive branch, said, quote, "It's just the height of hypocrisy to wear the robes and live the lifestyle of a billionaire," unquote. Taxpayers, he added, have the right to expect the Supreme Court justices are not living on the dime of others. Fox, who worked under both Democrats and Republican administrations, said he advised every new political appointee the same thing. Your wealthy friends are the ones you had before you were appointed. You don't get to acquire any new ones, he told them. Thomas and Novelli did not respond to a detailed list of questions for the story. Huizenga died in 2018, and his son, who was the president of the family's holding company, also did not respond to multiple requests for comment. In a statement to ProPublica, Sokol said he's been close friends with the Thomases for 21 years, and acknowledged traveling with and occasionally hosting them. He defended the justice as upright and ethical. Quote, "We have never once discussed any pending court matter," unquote, Sokol said. Quote, "Our conversations have always revolved around helping young people, sports, and family matters," unquote. Quote, quote, "As to the use of private aviation," unquote, he added, quote, "I believe that given security concerns, all of the Supreme Court justices should either fly privately or on governmental aircraft," unquote. The justices have said they follow court rules prohibiting them from accepting gifts from a group of people so frequently that, quote, "a reasonable person would believe that the public office is being used for private gain," unquote. But what actually constitutes a gift under these rules is ambiguous, and in practice, justices have few restrictions on what they can accept. Other members of the court have accepted travel underwritten by wealthy businessmen and speaking invitations at universities. Stephen Breyer accepted a flight to a Nantucket wedding from a Democratic mega-donor. Ruth Bader Ginsburg took a tour of Israel and Jordan, paid for by an Israeli billionaire. Those gifts are public because Breyer and Ginsburg disclosed them. Thomas, however, is apparently an extreme outlier for the volume and frequency of all the undisclosed vacation he's received. He once complained that he sacrificed wealth to sit on the court, though he depicted the choice as a matter of conscience. Quote, "The job is not worth doing for what they pay," unquote, he told the Bar Association in Savannah in 2001. Quote, "But it is worth doing for the principle," unquote. To track Thomas's relationships and travel, ProPublica examined flight data, emails from airport and university officials, security detail records, tax court filings, meeting minutes, and a trove of photographs from personal albums, including cards that Thomas's wife Ginny sent to friends. In addition, reporters interviewed more than 100 eyewitnesses and other sources. Jet and helicopter pilots, flight attendants, airport workers, yacht crew members, security guards, photographers, waitresses, caterers, chefs, drivers, river rafting guides, and C-suite executives. ProPublica has not identified any legal cases that Huizenga, Sokol, or Novelli had at the Supreme Court during their documented relationships with Thomas, although they all work in industries significantly impacted by the court's decisions. In a small circulation biography given to Huizenga's friends and family, Thomas acknowledged that he and Huizenga discussed some of the billionaire's companies, but said their relationship was never transactional. Quote, "It wasn't that kind of friendship," unquote, he told the interviewer. The justices said they prefer to go to a small restaurant in a strip mall or sit on the billionaire's lawn and drink tea or Diet Coke. Quote, "We are in a society where everything is quid pro quo," unquote, Thomas said, but not with the Huizengas. Quote, "I don't do anything for them, and they can't do anything for me," unquote. On Labor Day weekend, 2019, Thomas boarded a private plane in Washington, D.C. for the first leg of a sojourn out west. The vacation had been months in the making, and thanks to Sokol, it was all taken care of. He's hosted the Thomases virtually every summer for a decade. The first stop was the Great Plains. It was the home opener at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, which Ginny Thomas had attended before transferring. The Thomases were joined there by other couples, including one of the justice's most vocal advocates, Mark Paoletta, who then worked for the federal government, and his wife. Sokol, a major university donor who graduated from the Omaha campus, arranged for the group to attend the football and volleyball games with all access passes. Clarence Thomas met with the football team the day before the game. The group walked out of the tunnel before kickoff. During halftime, they stood on the sidelines to watch the marching band perform, at one point posing for a picture in the end zone. Quote, "The Sokols took 4 lucky couples to the first Nebraska football game of the season," unquote, Ginny Thomas wrote in one of the card captions. Yeah, and they got a picture of that picture right here, online. See, that's Thomas right here, and there's his wife at the football game. Sokol runs a private equity firm and now also chairs a holding company that owns large international shipping and power utility corporations. He resigned from Berkshire Hathaway in 2011 amid an internal investigation by the company that found he had violated its insider trading policy. At the time, Sokol denied wrongdoing and said his resignation was unrelated to the episode. He was never indicted. That Saturday, the group watched both the football and volleyball games from luxury suites. The football skybox, which typically cost $40,000 a year, belonged to Tom Osborne, a former Republican congressman who was also the head coach of the team for 25 years. Hosting the Thomases had ripple effects. A local priest requested a ticket for his 87-year-old mother, but the volleyball coach had to tell him none was available. Quote, "All of our tickets have been taken for Clarence Thomas and his group," unquote, the coach wrote. The Thomases have been treated to at least 7 University of Nebraska-Lincoln games, 5 arranged by Sokol in recent years. The Times first reported on Thomas's appearance at some of them. Thomas has never reported any of those tickets on his yearly financial forms. Judiciary disclosures rules require that most gifts worth more than $415 be disclosed. Quote, "It's so obvious," unquote, said Richard Painter, former chief White House ethics lawyer for President George W. Bush. Quote, "It all has to be reported," unquote. ProPublica identified more than 60 federal judges who disclosed tickets to sporting events between 2003 all the way up to 2019. In 1999, Thomas disclosed a private flight and accommodations for the Daytona 500, but hasn't reported any other sporting events before or since. In a statement, Osborne confirmed Thomas has, quote, "watched a couple of football games," unquote, in his suite, which the university had given to him. He said he is, quote unquote, taxed for the use of the suite, but did not answer whether Thomas has ever reimbursed him. The University of Nebraska-Lincoln did not respond to requests for comment. On Sunday, the morning after the football game in Nebraska, Sokol flew with Thomas by private jet to Sokol's paintbrush ranch just outside Jackson Hole, Wyoming. The property, valued in the low 8 figures, sits in the foothills of Shadow Mountain. A local radio personality said of the estate, quote, "This is the ultimate home, and it has the most iconic view of the Tetons I've seen ever," unquote. Let's go to a commercial break, and I'll continue this.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Ruth McLaughlin, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Republicans. How can Joe Biden take your guns away?
He's going to take your guns away, you know that, right? Biden.
Didn't Barack Obama take them away in 2008 and 2012?
Obama wants your guns. How is that anything but fear-mongering?
It is actually quite accurate.
There have been more guns sold since I've been president than just about any time in U.S. history.
Oh, right. It was just another Republican lie. It never happened. Donald Trump and the Republicans have been using this fake threat for decades. And while we're clearing up BS, Joe Biden doesn't want to defund the police.
I'm the only one who's talked about increasing police budgets.
Joe Biden isn't soft on border security. Joe Biden won't raise your taxes unless you make over $400,000.
I'm really rich.
And remember all those Hillary Clinton she's dying stories from 2016?
She can't make it 15 feet to her car. Give me a break.
More BS.
I do have the unique experience of having shared a debate stage 3 times with Donald Trump, and I know that he will do or say anything.
She's fine.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, so let's continue on with this article here about Clarence Thomas. Sokol also owns a waterfront mansion in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, currently worth $20.1 million, where he's hosted the Thomases as well. According to photos of the visits, the 12,800 square foot property includes a home theater, elevator, walk and wine cellar, and yacht docking. In addition, Sokol and Thomas have shared an opulent lodge together while vacationing at Crow's private lakeside resort, Camp Topridge in the Adirondacks. In Wyoming, the Thomases fished, rafted on the Snake River, and sat by a campfire overlooking the Teton Range with the other couples. At one point, the Paletas serenaded the justice with a song they wrote about him. Like Thomas, Paletta did not disclose the trip on his yearly financial filings. At the time, Paletta was general counsel and the designated ethics official at the Office of Management and Budget. In a statement, Paletta said he wasn't required to disclose the trip because he had reimbursed Sokol, but he did not say how much or provide documentation of those payments. Quote, "I complied with all the ethics laws and regulations," unquote, said Paletta. Details of the vacation to Nebraska and Wyoming were drawn from photographs, trip planning emails, and social media posts, as well as interviews with airport workers, local residents, and others familiar with the travel, including river raft guides. Since 1990, Sokol and his wife have donated more than $1 million to Republican politicians and groups, along with smaller amounts to Democrats. Last October in New Orleans, Sokol made a direct reference to a pending Supreme Court case while addressing a group of former Horatio Alger Scholarship recipients. Thomas was not in attendance. The speech veered into territory that made many of those in attendance uncomfortable and let others appalled. Emails and others' messages show. Sokol, who has written extensively about American exceptionalism and the virtues of free enterprise, minimized slavery and systematic racism, some felt. He then criticized President Biden's student loan forgiveness plan, arguing Biden had overstepped the government's authority, according to a recording of the speech obtained by ProPublica. Quote, "It's going to get overturned by the Supreme Court," unquote, Sokol predicted, echoing a common legal commentary. He was right. This summer, the court struck down Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. Thomas voted in the majority. Nearly every spring, Novelli, a billionaire who made his fortune storing and transporting petroleum, takes his 2 yachts on a fishing expedition to the Bahamas, Exima Islands. Photographs from the trip show porcelain beaches, Carulian waters, and fresh mahi-mahi. Friends and family come and go for days at a time. 3 of Novelty's former yacht workers, including a captain, told ProPublica they recall Thomas coming on board the vessels multiple times in recent years. Novelty's local chauffeur in the Bahamas said his company once picked Thomas up from the billionaire's private jet and drove him to the marina where one of the yachts, Le Montre, frequently docks. Le Montre, named after the premium French wine, is a 126-foot luxury vessel complete with a full bar, multiple dining areas, a baby grand piano, accommodations for 10 guests, and a handful of smaller fishing boats and jet skis. Novelty charges about $60,000 a week to outsiders who want to charter it. Jesus. Another past guest on Novelty's yacht is quote-unquote alligator, Ron Bergeron, one of the biggest land and roadway developers in Florida. Around 2018, Novelty and Thomas went to Bergeron's private ranch on the edge of the Everglades, a sprawling gated estate with centuries-old cypress trees and an 1800s-style saloon on site. He described Novelty as a man who likes to share his success with others. Quote, "He's very generous with all his friends," unquote, Bergeron told ProPublica. Bergeron said his conversations with Thomas at the ranch were strictly about charity work and not business. Quote, "You're talking about a great man," unquote, Bergeron said, quote, "who gives his time to make a difference for America," unquote. Since 1999, Novelty's family and companies have publicly disclosed at least $500,000 to conservative causes and Republican candidates in federal elections. Before then, he had given to both parties. Novelly, who recently stepped down from his CEO roles, ran his business affairs aggressively, ending up on the wrong side of the government in at least 2 cases. He spends much of his time between St. Louis and Boca Raton, Florida, where he has a 23,000 square foot palatial estate appraised at $22 million. In 2002, Novelly established residency and a holding company in the Virgin Islands. During a hearing with local officials, Novelly described the arrangement there as a, quote, quid pro quo, unquote, meaning the U.S. territory received a boost to the local economy in return for offering substantial tax breaks. The IRS would later call it a, quote, abusive tax avoidance scheme, unquote, and pursued Novelly for millions in back taxes and penalties. Novelly denied the characterization and eventually settled with the government for a negotiated amount. There is no evidence his friendship with Thomas helped Novelly in one of his most significant disputes. In 2005, the Justice Department sued Novelly's company, Apex Oil, because its corporate predecessor had contributed to a massive groundwater contamination beneath an Illinois village, and then Apex refused to help with the cleanup. Apex argued the spill had occurred before the company went through a bankruptcy years earlier. Several judges ruled against Apex, which eventually appealed to the Supreme Court in 2010. The justices declined to hear the case, and the company had to pay about $150 million to help remove oil from the soil. It's not clear how Thomas voted in the case because such votes are not typically public. The vacations ProPublica identified appear to have occurred after the case was resolved. In 2020, Apex Oil, Sokol, and Crow helped fund a documentary defending Thomas as a response to an HBO film that was critical of the justice. Sokol called the HBO movie a Molotov cocktail into our homes, and a prime example of America's eroding civility. Thomas's first billionaire benefactor is likely H. Wayne Huizenga, believed to be the only person in American history to build 3 separate Fortune 500 companies. One of the 3 was AutoNation, which Huizenga founded in 1996 before building it into the largest car dealer in the country between 98 and 99. Huizenga's holding company spent $500,000 lobbying federal agencies that regulate the automotive industry. According to Open Secrets data, over the years, the Huizenga family and companies gave millions to state and federal Republican candidates and won through a fundraiser for the Florida GOP that helped keep the party afloat for months. The billionaire was known to regularly lavish gifts and perks on those in his orbit. He routinely took friends on opulent vacations, he paid his employees handsomely, and sometimes covered their bills and personal expenses. On a whim, Huizenga once handed box tickets for the opera, which were worth thousands, to his caterer, Bob Leonardi. Quote, I led the life of a multimillionaire without being one, unquote, Leonardi said. For 20 years, Thomas benefited from Huizenga's attention as well, availing himself of the billionaire's fleet of aircraft and other luxuries. Huizenga took Thomas to see the Miami Dolphins and Florida Panthers several times between the mid-90s and the mid-2000s, according to interviews and photographs. Huizenga owned both teams at the time. Executives saw Thomas around Huizenga's office often. Richard Racone, the former president of Huizenga Holdings, said Thomas once shadowed the billionaire during meetings. Quote, he just wants to see what I do every day, unquote. Racone recalled Huizenga saying, on at least 2 occasions, Thomas attended Huizenga's birthday and Christmas parties, which the billionaire held inside his private hangar at the Fort Lauderdale airport. Van Poole, a lobbyist and former chairman of the Florida GOP, recalled riding down the elevator at the nearby Hyatt Pier 66 hotel, which Huizenga also controlled. When the Thomases stepped in with a security detail, the group discussed college sports and then traveled to the party together, Poole said. Thomas occasionally flew on Huizenga's helicopters, sometimes taking off from the roof of the corporate headquarters, and at least one of his Gulfstream jets around Florida, according to his former pilots. But The billionaire's most luxurious planes were a pair of 737 jets he had retrofitted like a lounge, complete with recliners, love seats, mahogany dining and card tables, and gourmet food. At least 2 times in the mid-2000s, Huizenga sent one of them to pick up Thomas and deliver him to Fort Lauderdale, said John Weiner, the flight attendant on board. Weiner recalled chatting with the justice about his nomination to the Supreme Court and the tumultuous Senate confirmation hearings after Thomas's former aide, Anita Hill, accused him of sexual harassment. Quote, he said, "Just imagine a job interview and you're in front of 100 people that hate you," unquote. Weiner recalled Thomas remarking, quote, "How would that interview go?" unquote. In the early 2000s, Huizenga gave Thomas something that was priceless at the time, a standing invitation to his exclusive members-only golf club, the Floridian. Designed by golf legend Gary Player, the course was lined with cottages for Huizenga's friends, a yacht marina for them to dock, and a helipad if they wanted to fly in. One family friend told the Huizenga family biographer that the Floridian was, quote, "the most coveted private golf invitation in the world," unquote. Those who worked and played there said the membership rolls were a Rolodex of the rich, famous, and powerful. From Michael Douglas and Rush Limbaugh to Michael Bloomberg and former Vice President Dan Quayle, Donald Trump once asked to be a member, but Huizenga spurned him, according to 3 of Huizenga's former employees. All 200-plus members were honorary and didn't pay dues. Huizenga covered everything. Quote, "It was a little slice of heaven, a magical place," unquote. Former media personality Matt Lauer told the biographer, quote, "You drove through the gates and it was this fairy tale land that he had created," unquote. It's unclear if Thomas was a member or Huizenga's frequent guest with similar privileges. The billionaire's former personal photographer and 2 former golf pros at the club recalled seeing Thomas there multiple times over the years. One of the Huizenga's helicopter pilots said he had picked the justice up from the property, and a 5th employee, a former waitress and concierge, said she once served Thomas and Huizenga, who were wearing golf attire as they dined alone in the enormous waterfront clubhouse for lunch. Quote, "Have you met a Supreme Court justice?" unquote. Huizenga asked the waitress before she took their order. Quote, "This is Clarence Thomas," unquote. Today, the Floridian, which the Huizenga family sold in 2010 before it underwent renovations, has a $150,000 initiation fee. Thomas first met Huizenga's at a formal gala in Washington, D.C. in '92, when they were both inducted into the Horatio Alger Association. Henry Kissinger and Maya Angelou were among the other honorees that year. The organization, named after the 19th century novelist who popularized rags to riches folklore, gives millions in college scholarships each year and also brings together some of the country's wealthiest self-made business tycoons for opulent events. In real life, Alger was a minister on Cape Cod who resigned from his parish after he was credibly accused of molesting boys. Oh, nice, huh? Quote, "We were proud to honor Justice Thomas more than 30 years ago," unquote, an association spokesperson said in a statement. Quote, "and remain grateful for his continued involvement in our organization," unquote. She said Thomas spends countless hours mentoring scholarship recipients. Thomas appears to have met Huizenga, Sokol, Novelli, and Bergeron through the organization. Several of Thomas's trips to Florida in the 2000s appear to have been connected with the association. In that time period, he joined Huizenga at Horatio Alger scholarship ceremonies in South Florida, travel that the justice disclosed in several of his yearly financial filings. However, he never identified Huizenga in any of his disclosures. The association spokesperson confirmed to ProPublica that the billionaire hosted those events and covered all costs involved, unquote. Experts said that means Thomas's disclosures would be, at a minimum, incomplete and misleading because the rules require federal judges to identify the source of the gifts they receive. Quote, "Source means the person or entity that paid for it," unquote, said Kathleen Clark, a legal ethics authority at Washington University in St. Louis. Belonging to the association has had its privileges. As part of a board meeting, the Thomases once went on a lavish trip to Jamaica where they were hosted by a wealthy donor who owned a luxury hotel atop a former sugar plantation. Johnny Cash performed. Horatio Alger Association membership itself is worth at least $200,000 according to the organization's meeting minutes in 2007, a sum that those who nominate a new member are responsible for raising in that person's honor. The association spokesperson said there was no requirement to raise money for new members back when Thomas was inducted. Thomas has likely helped the group earn many times that figure since then. Every year, the Justice hosts an event for members inside the Supreme Court's Great Hall. The Times previously reported that the event afforded the Horatio Alger Association unusual access to the court. ProPublica examined boxes of association's historical archives, including financial records that show the group has required donations of at least $1,500 to $7,500 for non-members to attend the Supreme Court event. In 2004, those who donated $100,000 for a table at the main ceremony got 10 seats inside the Supreme Court. In the judiciary's code of conduct, which is general guidance that does not apply to Supreme Court justices, though they say they consult it, there is explicit language advising federal judges against using their position to fundraise for outside organizations. But that's what Thomas has done, said Virginia Cantor, a former government ethics lawyer who served in administrations of both parties and reviewed the association's financial records at ProPublica's request. Quote, to use the Supreme Court to fundraise for somebody's charity is, to me, an abuse of office, unquote, she said. Cantor acknowledged the organization may do good work, but that's beside the point, she said, because wealthy donors aren't supposed to be able to pay thousands of dollars to visit a justice inside the courthouse walls. Quote, it's pay to play, unquote, Cantor added, isn't it? Yes, it's a long article, but it gets right into the guts of the corruption that's going on in the Supreme Court, which is something that, you know, every American really ought to be concerned about, because, you know, seeing what the Supreme Court has been able to do so far with these Republican members sitting on it, they've really upended a lot of things that this country is livid about, which is what kind of thing, you know, has motivated the situation that occurred this week in Ohio to try to put hurdles in front of Republicans to stop them from, you know, doing this minority rule bullshit across the country. And the Supreme Court is, you know, one factor in that. Then, of course, you got Donald Trump out there doing his factor in it, you know. And then you got Ron DeSantis down in Florida basically turning his state into a country in itself, okay? You know, and I feel like, you know, when you hear about stories like this, and then you ask yourself, well, why did this thing happen out in Ohio? Well, Jesus Christ, take a look around you. You got corruption from the Republicans all over the goddamn place. I mean, and they're not even hiding it, for God's sake. Ron DeSantis is proudly telling people to go fuck themselves, okay, you know, firing his own prosecutor, for Christ's sake, because he knows that he could, you know, that he needs somebody on his side. You know, and this was a guy that was lawfully elected to a position, and he fires his ass, okay? And then, of course, the assault on public schools, which has created a mutiny of a sort in Florida, because some schools have said, you know, to hell with what DeSantis says. We're going to do it our way, and if he doesn't like it, sue us, you know? So they're not going to cooperate with something that doesn't seem or look right, okay? And when people take matters into their own hands like that, you know they're pissed. You know they are pissed, because it takes a lot to piss people off to go against, you know, governing authority. So this isn't some little isolated thing that went on in Florida. There's no isolated thing that went on in Ohio. It doesn't, you know, these are signs that America is getting sick and fucking tired of the Trumplicans, I guess you want to call them, because I hate to say that they're Republicans, because that party's dead. The party that exists now isn't anything like that. It's as dead as Mitch McConnell's going to be soon. Okay, and the Trumplican party is essentially the party that's a cult inside our own government. And I don't know about you, but I think there were things in the Constitution or, that was designed to, to keep cultism out of our government because of the havoc it can wrought across our country. There is no good history with cults, in government. It always leads to some bad shit, and it's happening right now in our own country. Okay, we saw it happen in Germany long ago, and it's happening here. Okay, it may not be a Nazi party, but it's a Trumplican party, and it's just as bad. Okay, because they're trying to do everything that goes against the grain of democracy. All right, and part of being able to do that is to tear apart what is. The Supreme Court is one of those things that they're attacking and shredding because they got their hands on some power in the judiciary. Okay, and they're abusing it as much as they can, and they're using it to bludgeon the rest of the country into submission over things that is not popular by the majority. Okay, most people would not have agreed to any of the stuff that the Supreme Court agreed to. Okay, and that's the thing about it, is that when the majority sees a minority group getting its way, all of us are saying, hey, time out, this is not fair. You don't play football and win touchdowns with just 3 people on one team and 50 on the other. Okay, this is not the way it's supposed to work. Okay, this is not democracy, this is not freedom. Okay, this is not what we're supposed to be about. And we got to step up to the plate and do something about that, or it's just going to get worse. And these people are not going to quit until they get everything. Seriously, we have a lot of things. I mean, Biden's done a lot to help. Okay, he's opened up new jobs in New Mexico, which is a big thing, and that's good. Okay, and he's trying the best he can with the kind of government that he's got to work with. I mean, imagine if he had, the majority in all the houses and the majority in the Supreme Court. Do you realize what much more that man could get done? In just 2 years, he's done more for this country than Trump did in 4, which was absolutely 0. Okay, and Trump was making all kinds of promises when he was president. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to rebuild back, America. We're going to make it great again. I'm going to build a wall. I'm going to do all these things, and he didn't do a damn none of it. Not one thing. He spent all his time ripping off the country, making it easier for the wealthy. Giving them more profit. And basically, he ruined the country even worse during the pandemic than it would have been if it had been a decent president, okay? But he made things worse, okay? So the right wing or the Trumplicans have no reason to say that they can't vote for Biden because, he'll ruin the country, when they already had 4 years of their own chance to do the good for the country and they failed, okay? And they still want to vote for Trump again. Why? What did he do good for you that while he was in there? I challenge any one of these Trumplicans to give me a fucking answer to that question, because I can tell you right now they don't have one. And I see it all the time, on YouTube when they got people put microphones in front of their face, they ask a question and they can't even answer that in a coherent way. They don't know. They have no idea. They try to reflect back on what they saw on Fox News and they try to spit out what they heard Tucker Carlson say or some damn thing which was nonsense then and it's nonsense now. Okay? But they don't know. And yet they still want to vote for Trump. Hang yourself all the more, right? That's what they want. All right, everybody, that's it for today. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. So please subscribe, comment, and keep your ears open for any local COVID-19 news. And treat each other kind out there, people. It's I know a lot of places it's pretty bad with the heat. And out in Hawaii, you people out there in Hawaii, I feel bad for what's happened out there. It's beautiful, beautiful state, beautiful area, and losing some landmarks out there can't be easy. I don't know if there's any chance it could restore some of it. I don't know. It's something engineers will have to look at that, I guess, if it's possible. But there's a lot of people out there suffering. They lost their homes and everything out there. So I hope that things turn around and you guys can get the help you need out there. So we're all thinking about you. And so everybody, take care, and I will talk to you again later.